The Spin-off Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spin-off's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by The Spin-off with help from Callaghan Innovation. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
To people in New Zealand, Karen Walker is a household name as a designer and business person, famous for women's clothing, the jewellery, perfume, sunglasses, and pioneering powerful fashion brand partnerships, like her range of resin paint colours. But Karen Walker is not just a significant figure in New Zealand. She's a fixture on the Business of Fashion's list of 500 most influential figures in fashion worldwide. The brand's sunglasses are worn by some of the world's most famous stars, Rihanna, Taylor Swift, LeBron James, and when they show at New York Fashion Week, their show would be front page of Style.com. The brand has partnered with some of the world's biggest retailers, Uniqlo in Japan, Anthropologie in US. They have about 1,000 stockists worldwide, and the sunglasses are reported to be a $35 million a year business. This is success on a scale that maybe not that many people in New Zealand totally grasp, and it hasn't happened overnight. Over 20 years, Karen and her partner Mikhail and her teams have created a real global super brand. And to learn a little bit about some of the steps on the way, about what it takes, Karen joins me today. So apologies for a bit of an epic intro, but I think it's just really interesting to get some of that context out there about the scale. How do you describe the Karen Walker business these days? Is it something that you'd planned to track like this?
Good morning. Hello.
Yeah.
We're a business of ideas. That's ultimately what we make, and those ideas end up in the physical form at some point. But really, I don't think of us as manufacturers or makers of any kind. We partner with good people to actually turn our ideas into physical objects. And that's, I always think, what we actually create is ideas and thoughts. And it's fun.
What led you to start up? Had you always had a dream to have your own business?
Yeah, in a very naive way, in a kind of 15-year-old kind of way. It started with $100 and a bit of fabric, and I made a shirt for a friend who was in a band, and then other people saw it and wanted the same shirt. So yeah, it was very cottagey and organic and very naive. But it was really just a reaction to me not being able to find, my friends not being able to find the kind of product we wanted. The landscape is so different now between when I started with $100 and now. We've been through the biggest revolution the world's ever known, and the landscape's totally different now to what it was 5 minutes ago, let alone 25 years ago. Now you're competing against every single brand in the world, whether it be like some hip little vintage store in the back streets of Aoyama or Uniqlo or Prada. You're competing against everybody in the world all the time. But at the same time, your audience is everybody who's interested in fashion and ideas. So the audience is bigger, and the competition is bigger.
The infrastructure around fashion back when you began was different as well, as with that protectionist age, there were a lot more makers and a bigger industry here, and that's kind of come apart. But at the same time, there's more choice now.
That's right. And I mean, I was pleased to see the back of protectionism. I think a lot of people were, and a lot of people it hurt. But that's just what happens when there's change. The country was out of sync with the rest of the world, and it was it needed that. But I remember speaking to somebody who'd been in the industry a long time, so the early 90s, and he was in the fabric business, and he'd been in the fabric business from like the 1950s. So he'd had like 30 years of protectionism. He was one of the few guys with a license to import fabric. And if you had a license to, if you knew the right guy and you had the license to import the fabric, you were sweet. And he had a, $20 million house and a Rolls Royce in the driveway. And he said to me one time that at some point in the late 70s or something, somebody had cancelled an order they'd placed with him. It was docking on the ship. It was on the ship. It was docking that morning at the port, and it was 20,000 metres of chartreuse polyester. And there's no reason why anybody in the world would need 20,000 metres of chartreuse polyester.
They're probably still selling it at Centrepoint Fabrics today.
Well, so the guy cancelled it this morning. That morning, 9 a.m. And by 11 a.m. he'd sold it to somebody else, and he was still on the golf course for lunch.
No way.
Because it was just like there was nothing you could buy, so you took what you were given.
Yeah, actual licenses to print money.
And I guess that's what I came in reacting against.
What was it like to actually to take on the world pre-internet for fashion?
God, you're making me sound so ancient.
Not wanting
what was
to
it
at all.
like when you lived in the cave?
It's only 15 years ago that we didn't have Google as part of our daily life.
Oh, God, those grey days,
Google didn't exist, so it's not a long time.
No, but there's a generation who don't understand that, Simon.
Yep.
It was totally different. You couldn't, if you wanted to know about stuff, you had to get on a plane. Now you just go on Pinterest, Vogue, go runway or whatever. It's a very different landscape. And our point of view was always, our competition wasn't the guy across the road. We always wanted to be a global brand. Very naively thought that we could do it, and just kind of went out there and did it with no proof or actually any sort of backup to that was possible. And I think now a lot of people, when they go into business, that's their first thought, that they will be a global business. And if you want to work in a certain type of product, you have to be. So you can't get to a scale in a very small market like this.
Exactly. No scale in a place this size if you're trying to do anything that is 100% new. If you're not going to be taking the chartreuse polyester that is given to you and turning it into something expected. Yeah, and that's why we very early on looked to the international landscape, because I realised I could do it. If I wanted to do what I wanted, I could have a business in this market at a certain scale. But if I took it globally and spoke to that same 1% of the population on a more global perspective, then it could be a bigger business. And so that was kind of the plan from very, very early. What were some of the turning points for you? There are a couple of wonderful stories that I've heard about the brand, like the pants sold at Barney's to Madonna kind of story, or the Big in Japan story, where these I saw that wonderful article in FQ of all of the fans in Japan who send you fan mail, and
the Japanese nothing beats Japanese fan mail. It's quite insane.
Yeah, how so what were some of the turning points, and how did you establish some of those kind of outposts, I guess, for the Karen Walker brand?
I always think of building that when you're building a brand or building a business, I always think of it like coral. And coral, you look at a piece of coral and it looks like one thing, but it's actually millions of little animals that have all come together, millions of tiny, tiny things. You don't see it growing, but it does. But it's tiny, tiny, tiny steps. So we've never had a huge sort of voila moment when, the big thing happened. It's been built on millions of small wins. And quite a lot of small failures as well. But it's just those lots and lots and lots of the small wins all building up. And one day you look at it and you go, oh my God, we've got this global brand. And you don't even know, really, you can't pick one thing. You can't even pick 100 things. It's a million things. But yeah, Madonna wearing the pants, that was awesome. But there's been like a million things like that.
I guess
been awesome.
Those are the things where what you're doing just breaches up into the public consciousness, because there are, not every time a celebrity buys a pair of pants gets into the paper, but that one time...
it kind of does these days, though, actually.
Yeah. Or even if they get snapped on if they've popped it up on their Instagram.
Yeah.
It's probably been sponsored. Yeah. That's that idea of your brand is a combination of the million things that you do. I think that's really interesting, and something that you guys have done a lot of in quite a pioneering way are those partnerships as well, like using the resources and the existing awareness of these bigger brands to do some interesting things. Can we go back to some of the first ones, like the Resine, which that was really pioneering and going to this day really strong. Yeah,
that's probably 15 years long relationship. And Resine were the first company that we partnered with in any sort of way. And it was weird because we had Resine and another paint company both approach us on the same day, which was really strange. And Resine was the obvious choice for many reasons, partly because, they have a history of really being forward-thinking and creative. They were the first people to put sunblock in paint, and they were the first people to mix paint in store. And so there was a lot of history there that we really admired. And they totally got our first thoughts around our paint range straight away. And that's been a very long and happy relationship. But yeah, it's about, I'm not going to be mixing paint. I'm not going to start a factory to mix paint. I want to work with the people who make the best paint and bring my ideas to it and bring their expertise to it in terms of how do you actually make it, get it, have it in the store, etc. I never wanted this to be a company where there's like masses of factories and thousands of employees, and I always thought it would be a better approach to find other companies who share with us value of ideas and all the things that we hold dear, who we think that we can work with, and who can also bring to it a real skill in terms of making product and working with us to get that product to market. So, and that's allowed us to go into many different areas in long-term and short-term, long-term licenses, short-term collaborations. Some projects are like designed to last to be alive for a week, and then you move on. We did a project, like Resine, we've been in business with them for probably 15 years, but this winter just gone, we did a collaboration with Blunt Umbrellas, who are another incredible company who really bring new ideas to what they do, totally different approach to umbrellas. And we did a collab with them where we applied our print to 2 different umbrellas, and that was intended to be in the market for 1 month. And I think it was actually only in the market for about 2 weeks because they just sold. But it's, I'm not going to go out and start trying to make umbrellas from scratch. Somebody else has already done it and done it brilliantly, so why don't we just work with them? And so that is really how we've built the business and intend to continue to build the business by we have the ideas, that's what we create, and that's a really hard bit. And then we work with people who know how to actually, turn those ideas into reality, whether it be sunglasses or fine jewellery, umbrellas, paint, what have you. And, they bring their skills, we bring our skills, and together you create something greater than the sum of the parts on a good day. Yeah.
It's like licensing IP in a way, isn't it? But one area that would be really cool to look at is the sunglasses, which, that is amazing, the way that business has grown, and the place it has in popular culture, where you have people like LeBron James, when he's celebrating the most amazing thing he's ever done in his life, winning the championship.
That was a crazy, crazy week, wasn't it? For him, but also for us, because we were on that ride with him every day. He was Instagramming wearing his sunglasses.
How do you, I suppose you can't probably roll it out in one answer, but, how do you build those ideas that take something that is undifferentiated and differentiate it just through kind of, the shapes and the ideas and the imagery?
It all comes down to not being, to not going, oh, close enough is good enough. I mean, that's kind of it. It's not compromising, really, I would say, is the most important thing every day in what we do. That, it's not going, oh, we can't, you can't make the lenses flatter or bigger. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just have that funny little curved tinted lens that everybody else has and stick a logo on the temple. That sort of compromise is not something we ever allow. If you can't do it right and do it to the vision, then you don't do it. And I think that's probably the difference. But also having a vision, an overall vision for the idea. You have being very clear on the ideas, very, very clear on the creative, not compromising on that. And having a clear vision, not just for the product, but for where the brand and the product should sit and what it should mean and what it should say to people and how it should make people feel. What does the brand mean? What do we want people to feel when they experience the brand in whatever form they experience it? And not compromising on that. And I think that's the key thing. And, in the design business, I always think we're at the pointy end of the spear. The design business, no matter what area you're in, typefaces we were talking about earlier or whatever, there's the ones at the pointy end of the spear who are actually going, without compromise, this is my vision and it's something new. And then, you have 100 people doing that or 1,000 or whatever. There's some people who work like that, and then there's the others who trail behind and regurgitate old ideas. That's just the nature of the design business. And our point has always been, we're at the pointy end. Whatever you guys do behind us, we don't care about. And this is our vision.
And the way that you managed to bring that in store, so for the sunglasses, the bar that you built to travel around to all of the stores, because, or else they're just sunglasses on a stand. So create the environment. Like, is it those
create the experience? Selling into the in-store experience is a funny one, because if you have your own stores and you do it right, it's brilliant for the brand, and if you do it wrong, it hurts the brand. And ditto, if you're selling into other people's stores, if it's in the right store, it enhances your brand. If it's Barney's, say, and if you're in the wrong store, it hurts your brand. So at every and then you've got the whole digital footprint as well. That if you do that right, it's good for your brand. If you do it wrong, it hurts your brand. So every decision along the way, where it's sold, how it's presented, what the experience is, what the product is, every single decision has to be made on, is this in line with our vision for the brand or not, including who we sell it to and how it's presented in their stores. And we're almost militant around that.
I was really interested about that idea of the utility clothing. The essay that you wrote for the Business of Fashion about your decision to no longer show at New York Fashion Week. And, that's been such a huge investment for the business over the years, showing for a long spell there.
20 seasons.
20 seasons. And
that's 10 Februaries that I've been in New York in minus 30 instead of in my backyard in the sun.
and that is a very real sacrifice, but also a sacrifice there is it means that a company that's based out of New Zealand, which is in the wrong hemisphere for New York winter, has to create both summer and winter collections at the same time. And it means that you have to be running essentially two businesses that are the best in the world. Best in the world on the northern hemisphere, best in the world on the southern hemisphere. And, the amount of effort that you went to get there, to then walk away from it as well because the world has moved on. How did that feel? And tell us a little bit about the thinking behind that.
First of all, working to both hemispheres is a pain in the neck, but it's possible because we still sell into both hemispheres. We just sell and show, present in a different way. You are, and we do 4 seasons a year. We do 4 drops a year, 3 months apart, and then for each of those, we have to think about northern and southern hemisphere. So, it's all hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But we've figured it out. We've been doing it a long time now, and we kind of know our way around it. But yeah, working to both hemispheres, it is, that's not easy, but it's not impossible. And I think more and more it's actually becoming easier, because seasons are kind of seasonless in some ways now, because everybody sells to everywhere. It might just be online, but everybody's looking to every market. And in terms of the investment, we showed 20 seasons at New York Fashion Week. For the last 3 or 4 seasons, we've been playing around with the idea of, does this model still work? And then last season we decided that no, the model doesn't make sense anymore. The fashion show model was invented in it really kind of came to popularity in the 50s. I just read Christian Dior's autobiography, and he was talking about some showing that they'd done, and it was the 50s, and there were 50 people in the room, all industry people, and somebody snuck in. Somebody was caught drawing, and they got thrown out one season, and then another season somebody had the cheek to sneak in a small camera, and they virtually got arrested. And that that idea of shows were set up originally to present a collection to buyers who were allowed to write words but not take drawings, and then they would go and place their order, and they'd get it 6 months later. And now, for a long time now, really for the last 5 years at least, shows have really been for the end consumer's eyeballs. That's who sees them. The end consumer is seeing the product before it's even off the runway. It's not even, sure, you have the media in the room, but that's only 500 people. So a lot of the people who are seeing it, most of the people who are seeing it are your end consumer. And it's kind of stupid to get your end consumer all hyped up and excited about something and then go, now forget about it. Pretend you didn't see it. And we'll remind you about it in 6 months' time. I mean, it's just, as a marketing concept, it's flawed. Yeah. And so once shows really became very visible to the end consumer, they lost their purpose, or their purpose had to be rewritten. And that's why a lot of, Burberry, a lot of brands are now either not showing or showing in season and having it be an end consumer focused, a consumer facing event rather than an industry facing event, and showing the industry buyers haven't been going to shows for years. They don't have the time to go to a show and wait for half an hour until some celebrity chef arrives late or whatever. They just want to get to the showroom, place their order, get to the next showroom. So buyers never go to shows anyway. So, in terms of the buying, product goes to the showroom, the buyers come in and place, and then the end consumer, and then the media see it in the press showroom, and the end consumer sees it when you're ready for them to see it, not 6 months before.
And as they became less relevant to how business is done, they also became bigger events, and these big kind of media celebrity red carpet shows.
Yeah, and I think that's where they're relevant now. So I think the relevance of shows is either as a experience or a brand experience, like Chanel taking a cruise ship full of reporters and fashion writers and bloggers to Cuba, a resort. They spend God knows how much every single season. You either make it a spectacle and have it become a social event, or you do it really small and kind of more punk rock, like somebody like Henry Holland would do it, or you just have it consumer facing. You don't do it at all. The thing is, there's so many options. There's so many options, but that model that we did for a long time is no longer relevant. So either you do it really small, or you do it really big, or you do it in a totally different way. So in terms of our marketing spend, we're actually spending even more this year in our marketing than we did when we were doing shows, but we're just spending it on different stuff and talking to our customer and the industry in a different way, and it's so much better. I'm already loving it.
Yeah, what does that involve? Is that a lot of air miles and a lot of events?
Yeah,
with your
this year I'm going to be flying even more than I used to. So this year I'll probably do 250,000 kilometres. Last year it was 200,000. But it's really about creating content now. That's a big part of it. So when so much of how you speak to people is through your digital presence, you've got to have interesting things to show and to talk about. So, we were in LA last week and we did 3 shoots in 2 days for different things, couple for jewellery and one for eyewear. actually 4 shoots because we did some for ready to wear as well. So, it's about just still having great ideas, executing them in a different way, not necessarily 33 girls walking down a runway for 8 minutes. Because that's, there's just more exciting ways to do it now.
At the exact same time that all of the other designers are also doing the exact same thing. It's like shouting while everyone else is shouting.
That's exactly it. Fashion weeks kind of are like that, aren't they? Yeah, shouting while everyone else is shouting. I like that.
Do you have kind of heroes in business or mentors? Because you do a lot of collaborating with, really big brands and, I guess I'm really interested in the mechanics of that. Like, how do you work with a Anthropologie or a Uniqlo, and how do you keep your own outcomes good in those situations?
Only work with people who get it. That's the most crucial thing. That's kind of my motto that I run the business by. And you know in the first 5 seconds whether somebody gets it or not. So we only work with people who get it, get the vision, share the vision, and that means that there's no compromises. Because when you go into arrangements with companies, I'm sure it happens all the time. The designer goes in and goes, "This is my vision," and they go, "Yeah, but you have to do it in navy and it has to be a bit longer or whatever." And obviously we listen to what our partners say, but we only work with partners who we think have something good to say. So, we're never having to have those like hair-pulling, teeth-grinding conversations where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in the room with these nincompoops who are telling me that we need to do that because it'll sell. We never have to have those conversations. And so that just comes down to being very careful with who you get married to in the first place, so you don't have to have those arguments.
What are some things that you kind of wished you'd worked out earlier? Like, there are always those moments where you're like, oh man, I've been doing this not the best way.
In any business, you have those every day. You think, oh my God, why did I do that? The trust your instinct, I think, is the most important thing. Any time that we've done something that didn't work out well, my instinct had always been there in the first place. That little voice in the back of your head going, this is bad, don't do this, you shouldn't do this. And then for some reason, you do it. And then when it turns to, turns to crap, you go, I kind of knew that was going to happen. So I think my number one thing is I always listen to my instinct now. I make decisions very quickly. I get the information, listen to a few voices who I respect, and listen to my intuition and make the decision based on that. And it very seldom puts me wrong. And if I'm not hearing the answer, I sleep on it. Or I just decide, go, no, I'm not making a decision on that this week. Talk to me next week. Take the time when you need it. There's no pressure. There's no gun at my back. And if I'm not ready to make the decision, then pass. But having said that, I normally make decisions very, very quickly. And they're always based around just what I feel about the question, not what other people are. I take advice. I have lots of people I talk to, but if it just feels wrong, I trust that over other human beings.
And do you have kind of like long-term strategies you're working to? Like, for example, with Topshop. So as a maker of clothes, people like Topshop are the enemy for smaller producers. And so to have actually kind of like co-opted them and become part of the ownership structure and bringing that force into New Zealand that wasn't here before you brought it in, was that a strategic thing to not be kind of cannibalized from below or be part of the new order? Like,
yeah, sometimes it's better to work with than work against, right? Pretty much. You just got to figure out where you sit in it. And somebody was saying to me the other day they were thinking of starting a new thing, and they were going, oh, but I'm not sure because, does the world really need more clothes? I'm like, no, the world doesn't need more clothes. So only do it if you've really got something unique to say. Because, you've got the H&Ms and Topshops and Uniqlos over here, and then you've got the, in a different field but just as big, you've got the Pradas and whatnot over here, and then you've got the, so if you're going to be a designer on a small scale, there's still possibilities there. Of course you can still do it, but you just got to have something unique to say. And also the other thing is, none of it's easy at any level. So, go in there knowing that. But yeah, it's there's still, nobody knows what they don't, what isn't out there. No, there's nobody going, oh, what we really need is this. You got to, as the creative person, as the person whose job it is to have the ideas, it's your responsibility to go, this is what I think. I truly believe in it, and I think there's an audience for it, and give it your best shot. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for people. But if you're just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, it's probably not going to. And you've got to have a different point of view at some level, the product or how you take it to market or something. There's always, not every idea has been thought of. There's a million different ways into the market. You just got to, I don't know, have a good idea.
Yeah, there's always room for someone to be excellent.
Of course, there's always room for something new. Always.
Yeah, the whole media is built on it. And it's like a final thought there, like, what's next for you guys as the recent innovations that you guys have brought out. You've released perfume ranges, yes. And Play Park, the store in Newmarket, has this wonderful kind of concept of the $15 to the $15,000 purchases in there. Is international retail a thing, or what's next on the board for you guys?
Yeah, there's we're very picky about what we take on, and I don't like to have lots of big projects going on. So, the last big new project we released was the fragrance, which was a year and a bit ago, and we continue to put new fragrances out all the time. We've just launched one last month and got another one beginning of next year, probably. But yeah, there's only so many areas that I feel comfortable working in, and I've pretty much covered everything now. Might be one or two new things I could do, but only if the right people, are partnering with me. So it's really about refining what we've already got, continuing to really question the ideas and only put out there what we think is really good. Retail, there's always room for retail to grow. We've got a couple of things going on at the moment, so here and internationally. So that should be start to happen end of this year, beginning of next year. But the company's really, it's a great size. It's exciting. We have the opportunity to create all the ideas that we have. My intention was never for this to be, like 150 stores globally kind of company, and we've had plenty of offers to work with us to take it to that kind of brand. But any big business decisions I always lay against the template of what's important to me as a human, as a mother, as a wife, as somebody who likes to have a Sunday off, and so if it doesn't fit within the template of what I want my life to be now and in 5 years and in 10 years' time, then I don't do it. And also if it doesn't fit against my template of what I think the brand stands for and should be.
That's so interesting to hear how you define success like that. And thank you very much for coming in and chatting to us today. It's really fascinating, and always so much new, and looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Simon. Pleasure.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound, and brought to you by The Spin-Off and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spin-Off Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
The Spin-off Podcast Network.